I am doing a little bit of a video today on 3 different commentaries. Hey everybody, it's Candy. Welcome to the channel. We're going to be talking about which commentary would you like to choose? Which one is the best? Which one has the most? Which one is the goodest? So I'm looking at 3 different commentaries today, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek inside of the book of Ruth on all 3 commentaries. And that way it will help you to decide if you're looking for a set and you don't know which one you want to choose. That's the way I was. So I started just buying as they would go on sale. I would pick one from whichever study I was in and buy that commentary from different ones. And then I had an idea of which one that I like the best, and I actually like them all. As I can afford to, I will probably add to my collection as I go. But let's just break down and how they differ and what they enlighten us on when we're studying from the book of Ruth. Okay, so the 3 commentaries that I have, this one is the New International Commentary, on the Old Testament for the book of Ruth. It is a hard cover that comes with a book cover. And then I have the ESV Expository commentary. And this one is from Crossway. And then the third one I have is put out by Zondervan, the Exegetical Commentary on the Old Testament Discourse and Analysis of the Hebrew Bible on the book of Ruth. And it is hardcover. Okay, I'm going to try to do a flip through as best I can. My tripod up here has done broke several times. So let's pull this off for now. We open up and we have the normal pages that are giving you like the contents, something about the author, some abbreviations to tell you what's what if you see them abbreviate in their commentary, and several pages of bibliography. You will find some explanation on the canon. Here we got introduction, we got structure, we have genre to tell you about the authorship and the date. We have information on that, historical, chronological, very specific information, the purpose for the writing, and about the canon, the Hebrew text information, the theological messages, and then you get on into the themes. I like the themes. Text, you got chapter 1, and it's breaking down like which verses, the characters, the location, the action. Some of this is very good. You will find it gives you some of the literary points. Okay, here we get into like the actual text and the commentary part, and you see that they are breaking things down. And so again, this is the NICOT on the book of Ruth commentary. As you can tell, it has a lot of information. It is talking about strictly the book of Ruth. There is not another section in here on another part of the Bible. On the paper in the back, you can find that it has a list of the other commentaries and the authors, if that is something that would help you to know which one you may want to order or try. Okay, now let's look at the Zondervans on the book of Ruth. It also is only text and context on the book of Ruth. There is no other parts or books of the Bible in here unless they are mentioned as cross-references. So whenever we open up these pages, we will find some of the normal stuff like the contents, an introduction, something on the author, some abbreviations. Again, you will see some information before you ever get into the actual study of the book. Okay, this one is put together a little bit different, as you can tell. It has some translation on Ruth, and it brings out 1, 2, 3, 4. So before you ever get into the actual text and study, you have some information on the whole book of Ruth, all 4 chapters. And then you get on into the introduction, and it breaks down like date and author, telling you some genre information, the framework, the narrative. You have a little bit of a different set of information in here, or maybe it's just put together different, but to me, this right here is easier to read than all the words just jumbled. I love this kind of commentary that gives me like some visuals and things like that. So I like this commentary, the way it's set up a little bit better. You also have information on the canon. You have the theological breakdown of it. You have, there's a lot in here. I love the way that this is set up and structured as far as a book. And then you get into chapter 1, and you see the introduction. You see a breakdown on the theme and the outline. And then you get on into the explanation of the text. Okay, now we have the ESV Expository commentary, and this is Deuteronomy through Ruth. And so you will have more than just the book of Ruth in this commentary. So when you open it up, you have a lot of basically the same. You got some contents, you got figures. This right here is starting out in Deuteronomy, so let's flip on through. Then you get to Joshua, then you get through Judges, and then way back here in the back, you will find the book of Ruth. So you probably get a little more. For some people, they might consider this a little more bang for your buck because it has more than one book in it. But you get the overview, the introduction, some cross-references. You get the genre, the title, the authorship, the theological points. And then you get on into like teaching you how to preach from the book of Ruth. But basically, this is what you get. This little section right here, this thin section, is the book of Ruth. But you also have Deuteronomy and Joshua and Judges in there as well. So for me personally, as a commentary that I like the setup of, the amount of information given, I'm personally drawn to this one as my favorite. But then again, I have not broken down for text to see exactly what does it offer that differs from the other. But I can tell you, this thick of a book, to only have a few pages on the book of Ruth in the very back there, is probably not going to give me a whole lot. This one being, it's a little bit, I would say, a little bit close to having, like, I don't know what you would say, the amount of information, but it being scattered, not scattered, but it being set up differently than this one, I'm going to lean towards this one. For if I was just to be going to pull a commentary at first glance without even knowing what kind of meat is in there, I'm going to reach for this one. Okay, we have looked at 3 different commentaries, and I have shown you a little bit of the basic stuff so you can have an idea of which way you might want to lean toward in ordering a commentary if you are looking for commentaries. So I went inside and I did some studies regarding Ruth through these 3 different commentaries, and I jotted down some key points that I thought might help it be a little more explanatory and maybe helpful for you to decide on which commentary you might like or you may want. So as I looked through the Zondervan exegetical commentary, these are some things that I noted down, so I wanted to go through them with you. So I found out in that commentary that it can be viewed in 4 acts and go through the book of Ruth like a play. It is the only book in the Hebrew Bible named after a non-Israelite. I thought that was interesting. It has speculations on the date and the authorship, and the literary study of the book of Ruth is like a work of art, okay? There was no way to go through in just a little sitting and just jot down all the elements that goes into that. So like it is very extensive in that sort of way. So you would need the commentary and to do your own study. Okay, it is in the time period in the events, it shows to be greatly contrasted between in the days in which the judges ruled. So you see the judges and Ruth are around in the same time frame, and you see the difference in the darkness of times that was revealed to us through the study of Judges versus that contrast in the book of Ruth. You see God's light shine. I mean, you see his light in both, but it is contrasted in the different ways of people conducting their lives during this time. So people did whatever they thought was right in their own eyes, and we saw that going on a lot more in the story of the book of Judges. And in the book of Ruth, you see how it brings out that there are also people on the earth who are still conducting their lives in a godly sense or fashion. So it's very rich in theology. It is full of word study opportunities. And it brought out how that this is intended to be read aloud and in one sitting as a whole book. And it points out the hope for the Messiah. Redemption is seen in this story. Many elements are found throughout it. If you can't pick them out in just reading the Bible, this commentary brings them out in an extensive way. It lets us know that the story does start out with the emptying of Naomi, but it ends in the restoring or the refilling her back to fullness. Extra key notes that I brought out, or that it brought out that I jotted down, was the study of the meaning of the names of the people, and also looking into the geographical locations, and note the characters of God found within the details of the lives of the people and throughout this entire story. Trace the origin and the key players to see where they came from. You will find some interesting things there, and how that God uses and saves and restores those who are outsiders, who are considered to be excluded. And then you see that the story goes on and brings out that it is a building up from a low place to an elevated position, and you will find that through the character of Ruth and also Naomi. The word hesed, the beautiful word hesed, is found all throughout the Bible, but it is very richly used in the book of Ruth, and the name of God, his names are found throughout there. Okay, now looking on at the commentary that was the NICOT. This commentary is very deep and extensive and full, and to me it is not as organized, not that it's disorganized, but it's not as organized in a way that my mind is geared toward learning from. But it does bring out the great need for a king. It gives insight on outside nations and their practices and their idols and their gods. It recalls us to look at the patriarchal narratives found in Genesis. It teaches us on the ancient customs and the ways of treating immigrants, and it brings out the laws that God put in place to take care of the widows and the poor and the needy and the strangers in the land. It also examines the roles of women and the shame for them not having a male heir. It brings out that the male practices was needed in ownership for conducting any kind of business matters through an estate, like buying or selling or making business deals, any kind of financial transaction. Okay, very deep, very rich, so much in there, good stuff in both of the commentaries. Then looking at the ESV Expository commentary, it was a little less wordy, or I don't know how to put it. There's less information. Not that it's bad information, it's just less information. I find that this one is going to be easier for people who are new to commentaries. It's going to be more like something that your pastor, your preacher, or teachers would find very useful in their pulpit use. So it shows that Israel is deteriorating. It shows the repeated cycles, dark times as the backdrop. But then it goes on and highlights God's purpose is for salvation, his promises. He brings light, he blesses, he stabilizes in a time of chaos and confusion. It shows the selfless acts of Ruth and Boaz as it gives them for examples to show God's kind of kindness to someone like Naomi, who is finding herself in a very empty state. It shows that the conclusion of the story gives us the Davidic focus and points us to how it's relating to the soon coming Christ. And so that was something that I thought would be more helpful, and I wanted to include that in the video. And I hope this video doesn't be confusing or too long or lengthy, but that is what I wanted to share. And going back through those commentaries, you know, a few months ago I did a study on Ruth, and it just makes me want to go back through Ruth all over again. And so I hope it excites you to look into the Bible and to read God's richness and goodness all throughout the pages, and to also include things in your Bible studies to help you along the way. Now, I don't want you to think that you have to have these things. There are free things online that you can use, and my goodness, the best way to do Bible study is two different ways. In your alone time and in a group. Start a group Bible study, and you can gain and glean from one another. No pun intended.